You know, because like that's one of the main things that we have in common, right? Initially,
Yeah.
was learning that we're both from Carbondale.
Yeah. No, that's absolutely it. So what, like, how many generations do you go back in Carbondale? Because I know you talk about like coming here and visiting your grandma.
Yeah. Um, you know, I really personally, I don't know how many generations, but I know at least like of me like meeting at least three.
Yeah.
But it's definitely been, more than that, of course. 6 or 7 probably. But I do think we came somewhere from the south. Not sure where. But yeah, Carbondale, we've been here. Carbondale blood, start to finish.
Oh my God, that
Yeah.
was last night, and just seeing people.
I absolutely loved last night.
Yeah,
Last
no.
night, just being in Trey's. Like if you're gonna be in Carbondale and you're from Carbondale, Trey's is like a spot where you're gonna see people that you know. You're always gonna have a good time.
Yeah.
And it's chill. It's always a good vibe. So going in there last night and like reconnecting with so many different people, I didn't think, oh, come back to Carbondale, I'm gonna be able to see some of the people that have been like the most influential to me,
Yeah.
in certain ways. And so it's just like, wow, this is Carbondale.
I mean, and you had people coming up to you and being like, Naomi, like, look at you.
Yeah.
Like, go get it. Matt's story about the teacher from like, or the camp counselor from back in the day.
Yeah.
Ah!
And that's the thing is I didn't even remember that lady, but after, him talking about it, I'm like, okay, I recall, but it's just like people can be so negative and in a moment it could seem like so much, right? But then you realize you got to be bigger than people's negativity. And I feel like that she was not my biggest supporter. And so to come forth, in a Facebook post, like, yeah, I'm with it. Okay. All right, lady.
Take it all in.
Right.
Soak it up.
Yeah.
It's weird doing that in like a hometown setting.
Mm-hmm.
Like the internet's one thing. The other is when you're doing stuff around people that you've been around for years and years and years.
Yeah.
I'm just now getting to that experience, and it's weird. It's different. Like, you really think like, that was 7th grade, and I still have this thought in my head that, like, this way and this person and this interaction.
And that's the thing. But I think at a young age, that's why kids are so crucial, right? Like that experience is so critical because it's your formative years. Like it's the years where you're going to have the most impressions. And so if anyone's going to put you down when you're young, then you'll stick with it your entire life. You'll believe it. Some people. I choose to kind of go against the wave, against the current.
And we're going to choose this awesome conversation for episode 47 of the WTF Carbondale podcast, where we talk to interesting people about their interesting lives and tie it all together to this little old place we call home, Carbondale, Illinois. And I am thrilled this episode, a different mix of people at any given time that I have different levels of relationships with, whether I know them well or don't know them at all. And in this case, somebody very special in my life, Naomi Tolbert. Thank you. Thank you for just coming into town and being like, hey, like we need to hang out and I need to just talk to you and like
catch up and figure out where we're at and where life is going. So I appreciate you having me on there. Like when you asked, it's like, sure. And I was like, I don't really know what that is. But let's see. And then I'm here. So yeah.
That's so like that felt so refreshing to me because it was like that tells me of how like doing you that you've been doing right for the past 2 years, because it really has been 2 years at this point. That's crazy to think of by itself.
Yeah.
But it was just like, okay, I've created this thing in this particular pool of activity over the past year since just a little bit before COVID-19 happened. Mm-hmm. And it's like, and you were like, I don't have any clue, man. And I was like, perfect. Freaking
Not that
great.
I didn't have a clue. It was just the podcast aspect of it. Of course, I know.
Well, yeah, but
WTF,
like
Carbondale,
the group and like some of the other stuff, and just like the broader conversation. Like I felt the right kind of humbled.
Yeah.
About like how not important I am. No, not like that. I don't mean it like I felt like unimportant, but like how like there is just a much bigger, world
Yeah.
out there that so many
So
people.
much going on.
Yeah.
No, I hear you. But no, I appreciate it. Like this is great. I think what you're doing is great. I think being able to like have so many viewpoints of Carbondale, like I just want the rest of the world to realize the gym that we have here.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people don't even know Carbondale is one of a kind. Like I don't think it should be overlooked, and I don't think it will be for long. And due to people like you, you're putting that spotlight.
And you.
Well, thank you.
And you.
But we're doing our part, right?
Yeah,
We got to do our part
it.
to be able to show people the truth of Carbondale, because people really don't know.
Yeah.
But I think it's one of the most beautiful cities. So when it comes to like people and just like experience.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, it could always use a fresh coat of paint and some more trees.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe a little bit more development here and there. But.
Yeah. What? So did you go to school at SIU, or did you go to school in Chicago, or did you go to both? I can't.
Both.
Okay.
Yeah. So I did my undergrad here at SIU, decided to stay home, be close to family. Yeah. And then after SIU, I went straight into my master's program. It was a 1-year intensive program in Chicago. So that was something at University of Chicago in international relations. And undergrad was political science. And so being able to just kind of, see that aspect, politics, international relations, how that coincides with literally everything in our lives, socio-economic, political, all these different aspects that just, I think, get overlooked as being unison, being one. We move through life so fast, we think we kind of have to like stick to one thing or stick to one path of understanding. But I think everything, like every experience that you have, really shapes the person that you are. So like we're meant to be unique in that sense of having a variety of experiences as opposed to just one. And so I guess that's long story short to say the political science, international relations, I think is amazing, but that's not the path that I'm currently on. But I do think that training and experience coincides into a bigger purpose that I have.
But the path that you're on, I think, makes sense, like metaphorically, conceptually applicable to, that as a whole. Like when you're saying, like, I want everybody to look at their way that they think and that they act and that they interact as one thing.
Yep.
Right? That food is the way, like, is that one thing. There is, food and water. Without those things in terms of
survival, where would you be? Exactly. So I think that, focusing on the food industry and being able to just give people good food that's good for them, is a start to like solving some of the biggest world problems. And when it comes to famine or comes to lack of nutrients, nutrient deficiency, different diseases that are very popular here in the U.S. and abroad, and I just think that people don't realize what you put in you becomes you.
Yeah.
So what you eat is what you get.
That's why it's the perfect metaphor for the food.
Yep.
And that what you consume is what you become.
Yep. Food to the soul.
It's tough to watch. I mean, I can't believe that there's still like that people are still going on that, like, some of the highest rated television news show hosts in this country are still going on TV and being like, the vaccine may not be great for you, but who knows? But science and what knows science and whatever else. And I'm just like, what?
Yeah.
And it's like that is put out there and consumed by millions of people. And that is what they become, is that school of thought.
Yeah.
It's like poison for the mind.
Mm-hmm. But I think it also stems, I try to look at both sides of everything, right? Try to be as objective as possible. And it's just like, in that respect, is it fear of the unknown? And so therefore, is there a need to be a little bit more transparent about what we're doing and the I just think that some people just don't understand. And so like that lack of understanding and fear is what contributes to the problem, as opposed to people just saying, well, I'm just not going to take it. I don't think people are 100% like against taking it.
Yeah.
It's being aware of like, am I getting the same vaccine Michelle Obama and Joe Biden are getting, you know, like, and, I'm not, a conspiracy theorist in that sense, but I do think that people, they just want answers, and it's just like, be a little bit more clear, in what ways can we provide satisfaction or understanding for the general public, not just an aspect of the population, but the majority of people. How can we make them comfortable in taking a vaccine? Because apparently the methods that are being used aren't working or need to be, and maybe it just takes time. Who knows?
Well, and that's very reasonable with the overall U.S. healthcare system and just general skepticism there. That I can absolutely empathize with. The other side, I watched something with like Tucker Carlson in it like yesterday or the day before, and where he was like going on and doing that thing. He was like, "Well, is the vaccine this?" And it's like he's obviously out there like trying to peddle misinformation type thing. It's like there are definitely two sides to this in terms of like you got one where it's misinformation, you got others that there are entire generations, there are entire races of people, there are entire categories of folks that are like, because like historically, this country ain't real good.
I'm letting you know.
With filling in the gap on healthcare disparities.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's the thing. It's just like, I think that people deserve a voice, more of a voice, but in the sense of also being given the right information. I think that oftentimes, like, the public can be satisfied with, just some of the responses, but I think any government, it should be taken into consideration. Like, you represent the people. So help the people be aware, apply the knowledge, and be able to be willing to take the action. And it's just like, but people aren't going to take that first step if they're not led in that way. Like, that's the purpose of government.
Where did your initial interest like in government and in like really a global institutions come from, right? Like, is that something you've always had? Like,
I have. So when I was a young kid, I feel like around like 7, like I always, I love the idea of equality, justice, opportunity for everybody. Like, being a 7-year-old kid, I'm like, I want to be able to help provide that to the American people. And it's just like, also around that time, I was at an after-school program, and there were some staff that were in the room of the program, and I asked, I was just like, they had asked me, what do I want to be when I grow up? And I said, I want to be president. And everybody in the room laughed. And I was like, what do you mean? And it was laugh in the sense of like, oh, you could never do it. Like, that's impossible. And looking back, it's just like, and we were talking earlier, just how you can be young and be so impressionable, right? But it's just like, I didn't take that as, oh, I'm incapable, and so I'm not going to be able to do that. Fuck that. Like, oh, excuse me. I'm sorry.
No, I mean, we can curse on this as long as you're okay with whoever like that sees this. Like, if Grandma watches and she doesn't know that you curse, and we get in trouble, because we'll get in trouble together. Don't worry. I'm cool with it.
Yeah.
I'll curse. You just let me know. Okay. Here's the deal. I had right. So a handful of the folks that are running for school board are are tied into local church communities. So like when they're going out there and they're sharing the podcast, me like WTF Carbondale, and get like questions from like deacons and pastors and like little old church ladies, like, what does WTF mean? And it's like, I've got to explain. It's like, I didn't name this years ago, but I'm really appreciative that somebody did give this to me. And like, it's been like a welcoming thing. And I'm like, just use the acronym. Don't say the full word. You don't have to say fuck. And like,
that's all. See the old ladies.
So yeah. So we've already been through some like some I don't even know what the right word to describe these moments are, but interesting moments with the name and with cursing. So you're good. Sorry, I didn't mean to go down.
No, you're good. You're good.
We're.
But basically, I wasn't willing to accept that, and I'll be the first to say, not many 7-year-old kids, especially being an African American female, or just any marginalized being. And I'm not saying others don't have differences, but overall, it's just like that experience. I didn't look at it as like, oh, I can't. It was rather, let me show you. I know I can. Like, that gave me energy to work more towards that, and that kind of blossomed that idea of just, expanding on what I knew to be true, which is that I was capable to provide justice, equality, and opportunity to people. And if I want to do that, I can do it regardless of what anybody says. But fast forward, and it's just like a few years after that, those same people would completely react in a whole different way. And it's just like, I find that to be satisfaction in itself, because you can't judge a book by its cover. You don't know what anyone is capable of. I have my favorite quote: whatever the mind of man can conceive, bring itself to believe it can achieve. And if you can truly believe it and work towards it, I think you can have anything, absolutely anything in the world. So yeah. But that started my love, for politics. And of course, my experience at SIU, amazing experience. I think one of the best experiences I ever had, in life, of just in being from Carbondale and then having that experience being on campus. Two different experiences, but both beautiful. And I don't want to, skip over, CCHS and all that, because all that, I think all of those formative years for me helped develop my understanding that I was an individual. But then, like, SIU shaped what that individual was and what I was capable of doing. Like, I was not doubted at SIU. I was uplifted in all regards. And that's something that I think, going from SIU for 4 years to the University of Chicago, for one, University of Chicago was a different experience for me. It was a little harder. I was introduced to things like elitism and, things that I had never really been exposed to here in Carbondale. But then, just realizing how, I'm back to being, just the one black female in the room that people don't think is intelligent or has, the comparison of experience, like it's incomparable. I guess I should say. Like, SIU really gave me life, and University of Chicago gave me grind, and it taught me a lot. So it was not a negative experience in any regard, but it just was different. But both of those experiences, like, helped me, I think, just really understand, okay, I like politics, but why do I like politics? Back to that original idea. I want to be able to help people. How can I help people? In what ways, like COVID-19 and just, after graduating, the job market wasn't ideal for me in international relations in Chicago. It's a little bit bigger on the East Coast. And so, I don't know, just being able to go through all that and realize, okay, maybe I have a different path that isn't focused, wholeheartedly on politics, but it's going to connect that idea later down the line, and being able to bring it all together. So I'm here now. I'm living, I'm breathing, and I'm happy, and I'm humbled, and I'm grateful. What more could you ask for, So
Self and grind. You asked for a brand when we were talking last night. There's your brand.
What did you say?
Self and grind.
Self and grind.
It's not what I said, it's what you said.
Yeah.
I just heard it. And then I said it back.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's the elitism thing is interesting, right? I never think about that. Like, we deal with, small town politics and like, insider relationships, right? Like there are hierarchies, whether it's in town or at the university or whatever else, but it's not elitism and like these just smaller interpersonal networks like we experience are, I imagine, two very different things.
Yeah. Because like here, and my experience, as I said, at SIU was phenomenal. I was involved in everything, and like being student trustee, that opened up my eyes. And so that I felt as though it was like an experience in itself. It's like, okay, I'm being opened up to a circle that I didn't know really truly existed as a regular person, but then
like a decision class almost.
Right. But then going and being at U Chicago, it's like, I don't know how to explain it. So their slogan is "Where fun goes to die."
What?
Not that they're official.
Well, yeah. But if it was,
it'd be true.
Badass.
No, but it's like it's a different experience, and I'm not knocking it. It's just it's not my type of experience, but it's a different experience. It's just like they take pride in working hard, and I take pride in working hard as well. But it's just like it's just to levels, like it's just pushing you to levels that you never thought you could be pushed to.
Yeah.
So doing that program, and I think it was just really intense. Like I said, it was a 1-year intensive program. Doing a thesis, doing all that, just was a lot.
Yeah.
But I survived. So at the end of the day, like, so I said, anything you put your mind to, you can achieve as long as you're working towards it. Like, if you don't give up, you're good.
Yeah.
The moment you decide to give up, then that's when all hell breaks loose.
Grind. It's the grind part of the self.
The grind time.
Brand. What was it? So how did you even like come to pursue the position of student trustee at SIU? Like that's something I just forgotten until you had mentioned it there. It was like, yeah, like that's a major part of your SIU experience.
Yes. Yeah.
And were you a junior when that?
I was a junior when I was elected and I was a student trustee all my senior year.
Okay. All right. Is that usually kind of like how it shakes out for folks? Is like
I think the earliest you can run is junior, I believe.
okay. All right. That would make sense. And then if you're Breon Lockett, you stick around for as long as you can.
Yeah. Or, whatever floats your boat. It was just like student trustees. Yeah, it was great. What got me into it, I was involved, like I said, in a range of organizations alongside Greek life. And so I was just like, well, student trustee could really be great. It'll expose me, to the right networks, being able to, have access to the top tier when it comes to just like decision makers, as you said here at SIU. And so I was just like, why not? Like, being a political science student as well, like it makes sense. It would look really good on my resume and could lead to more opportunities later down the line. Yeah. And so that was the initial.
That was not polite. I'm sorry.
What'd you say?
I said psych. No, just. I mean, you never know. Like you got to try it, and like if something else comes of it, cool. If not, you're just like, okay, that same grind sticks with you. But it's like you realize that there are just people that like this is just what you do. Yeah. And like you'll always have that network, you'll always have that experience, but the reality is like it doesn't just lead to the next thing. Like you have to always be going out and getting the next thing. Yeah. Like it doesn't just come to you because one thing comes to you.
Yeah. And that was the realization with U Chicago, I think, because after graduating, I was like, okay, I'm getting a degree from University of Chicago. Like it should be fine. Like and have a job in a second.
Psych.
Now it's not the case, and it was disheartening though. Yeah. As I would say, as a young American with the idea of the American dream being at my footstool as long as I work hard and I put my bootstraps on. When I say I put on my bootstraps, my socks, I put on my dress, I put on my bonnet, I put on everything that I need to fucking put on.
Yeah.
Now what? And then it's like you go back to the basics. You go back to what you know. What do you love? Yeah. What are you able to do to help make people happy, but also make you happy? And that's what brought me back to food, because I knew food. Regardless of whatever degree I could have, like I know food, and my love of food stems from my family, specifically my great-grandmother. And it's just like, if I can bless all the people, that have eaten my food, they love my food. And it's just like, if I can do that, why not make it into a business? Yeah. Why not develop that? Give people good food that's also good for them. Makes them a little bit happier.
Wherever you can.
Yeah.
And we were talking again last night, hitting that 25 to 30 range where you're like, nobody tells you about the free fall of these years. That's just like, you're floating on a cloud all the way up until a point, then you're like, oh, this is gravity and that's pavement below me.
Yeah.
And that's what it feels like.
Yeah. But it's just like, I don't think it's definitely a lot. Don't get me wrong. Like, it's not been easy since graduating. I just have had to realize, okay, you're an adult now. Like, you were an adult, but you're really an adult now.
Yeah.
And so, like, you got to do adult things and be responsible and, like, learning. As I told you, last night, I struggle with consistency.
Yeah.
And it's just, like, learning, okay, these are some of your, faults that you need to focus on to grow and develop in so that you can be a better person, not only for yourself, but for other people. Mm-hmm. Start that journey now as opposed to later. And it's just like, you feel like you're running out of time, but you're still young, but it's weird. It's really weird.
Well, and we have so, right. We live in a society where we're all pumped up to just achieve early. Mm-hmm. And like, if you're driven people like we are, if you feel like you miss those marks and you're not some, such and such associate or some particular kind of business owner, or you haven't, launched this startup or whatever, that like you've missed it, but you really haven't. And like that, again, we talked about, that the things don't just come to you, that you have to go to the next thing. But that's
a marathon. It's not a race. But we're told too often, like, you're racehorses. You got to race. Come on, let's get it together. But it's just like, no, like, I really should be jogging right now as opposed to running at my highest speed. I'm not saying, to go slow and slow yourself down, but be aware of the speed that you need to get to really develop something that's going to prosper. you're planting seeds. You have to water those seeds. You have to cultivate those seeds. You have to love those seeds. Give them everything that they need, sunlight, everything to be able to grow. But through that process, like as that seed is underground and the plant is growing, but it might not be growing in the way that you want to see it. You don't see anything sprout up, but all these roots are being developed. All these roots are stabilizing. And like the strength of those roots is what's going to be able to determine how high up and how strong that tree or that plant's going to be. But we don't look at our lives like that. We look at it as, I don't know, it's like a junkie in a sense. Like you got to, shoot up and be ready. It's like, whoa, like slow down.
We're oaks, not bamboo.
Huh?
We're oaks, not bamboo.
Yeah, for sure. And if I can give any insight to anybody that is in my age range or anything like that, like don't feel like you're failing or you're falling behind or you're not where you need to be. That's not true. You're exactly where you need to be. Like who you are today, every experience leading up until this point, like you've developed into the person you are today through those experiences. Take them like for what they are, but then also give yourself the patience and understanding and the love to be able to say, I got to work at whatever I need to work at every single day. I don't have to get it all done today, but every single day I'm going to work towards my goals. What's one thing I can do to make myself feel a little bit closer to my goals? What's one thing I can do to make sure that I feel good and always feeling better? Because if you're not feeling good and it's not, you don't feel content and something's going on, like you can't really grow. You can't really be that strong plant that you want to be. You're never going to see it sprout because you're not nurturing. And I'm sorry with the metaphor. Am I making sense?
It's a great metaphor. I'm just like, I'm sitting here and I'm like starting to like pucker up, and I'm just so happy to be having this conversation right now. And I'm trying not just to be like, emotions. I'm keeping it together for another 37 minutes and 25 seconds, give or take.
No problem. I'm not trying to be a preacher up here, but I really do think that people deserve to be told uplifting good things because that's what you deserve.
Yeah.
Like the reason why people aren't like that because what's the norm? Negativity.
Yeah.
Being negative and hating the world, hating others, hating yourself, that's the norm. But like if I can come into the room and show you a little bit of love, you might think twice of what choice do I actually have? Is it a choice? Yes. Is it more than one choice? Yes. You can be negative or you can be positive. And I'm sure there's other, maybe there's in between.
You can be real.
You can be real, And it's just like, but a lot of people don't know some of those things are options because they're not given those options on a daily basis.
Yeah.
But I'm here to walk and let you know, like, be whoever you want to be. Whoever you are, let that person out. The truth, as opposed to fakeness and negativity and hatred and, miss me with all that. I don't. I stay away from all the negativity. You got to. For yourself.
Yeah.
But I feel like the only way you can be like a really good person to other people is by focusing on like, am I good? Am I content? Do I feel loved? But where's all that coming from? Me to myself. As opposed to expecting it from other people.
Generated internally.
Yeah.
You have
to a certain degree, but it's like you definitely need love from other people.
Yeah,
I'm saying it starts with you. Like, how can you give love if you don't have love inside? How are you giving it? Is it love that you're giving? And that was a conversation I had later on in the night with Matt Wilson. It was just like, you're either uplifting and you're growing and you're helping people, or you're spewing. And someone was like, well, spewing doesn't sound like a good word. You're right.
Yeah.
But a lot of people are out here spewing. They're not giving. They're not growing. They're not nurturing. And it's just like, do you really want to look back and like when I die, hopefully it's a long time from now. Like when I die, I want people to say, wow. I want a lot of people, like millions of people, to be able to say, wow, that lady was a great lady. She did something, she did something great for humanity, for people, whatever. I would hate for someone to say, she just spewed negativity throughout the world. Like, who wants to be that person? No one. No one wants to be that person. But every single day we make those choices to be that person that grows into that person. The angry, mean person in the corner of the room that doesn't talk or socialize with anyone, and there might be reasons for it, right? But it's just like, that person might feel as though no one loves them, but like, are you showing that, like, are you giving people an opportunity to love? Like, it comes down to us. Like, what do you want? And like, if you know what you want, work towards what you want. If you want to be loved, work towards loving people and loving yourself. I don't know if it's that simple. I think it is, but I know life sends out different complications. And don't get me wrong, been through a lot of things as well. I'm not coming from a place of being oblivious to life and being able to say that, but rather being exposed to life is what's brought me to this understanding. So.
It's good. It's real good.
Thank you. You're quiet.
That's it. I mean, I'm happy. I'm in a really good place right now. There aren't a lot of people who I connect with that I don't get to very often, that when I'm able to, like this, whether we're putting this on camera, but most of the time it's not, right? But these same conversations still happen, right? It's like it's Rep, and now that Andrew's moved home, it's like I've got one person here and a handful of people still like accessible, but at a distance.
Yeah.
Right. So anytime this gets to happen, it's like you have all this energy and all these, thoughts and feelings that have gathered over, over a course of time, and then you get to just like engage the right people with it, because the right people aren't always physically there with you. Right. And that's just part of chasing the dream.
Yep. You're right about that.
I mean, it's weird, right? It's weird to be like anchored here and feel like the people that, I know that are chasing the dream, like their dream exists in more places than just this. Mm-hmm. But I exist in here where my entire dream exists in this place, but can like, again, reach out and have that connection and find a way to like go to and then draw back.
It's all full circle, right?
Yeah, it's wild. It's really something special. And
it just shows how interconnected we are. Like people overlook it. And I don't know if it's just through like it being normalized. They're like, oh, like your neighbor doesn't benefit you whatsoever. Like, no, like people benefit you. Like connecting with people is what makes you a better person.
Yeah.
Like that's growth, because you're getting exposed to different thoughts, different, experiences, different perspectives of others. And like I think to be most objective, what am I trying to say? Look, I can't speak anymore. But it's just like to be the most objective, you have to really be able to be exposed. Mm-hmm. And I try to expose myself to as many people as possible in different thought processes. And it's not like I agree wholeheartedly with, with everybody that I'm interacting with, but it's just like to be aware. Because I think at the end of the day, regardless if it's the popular opinion or not, everybody deserves to have a voice. Yeah. Everybody deserves to be heard.
It's pollination, right? I mean, it's what insects do to flowers and what trees do when they release pollen in the air, and it's so funny to think about it in that context. Like maybe this was the first forum, maybe it was the second forum. It was the first forum, because it was. So the Neighborhood Alliance meeting went online this year, obviously, just like everything else, and like 20 some odd community organizations spoke beforehand, and somebody made a mention of kind of pollinating. I think it was Jess that made a mention of like pollinating and talking about their mission. I think she was specifically speaking about the Racial Justice Coalition, and I picked up and I use that same language, and I was like, if I was to draw on something, like that's what I would draw on, is this idea. Like that's it. That's what you're describing right now. It's like you have to engage and interact with folks. Now, granted, there are limitations in some respects to folks, but for the most part, it's like you can't just cordon yourself off and think that you're going to become a better. I didn't even mean to emphasize E and the B, but but you're not going to become a better person through isolation.
Yep. And I think that part of the problem that we see in society today is that with some of my thesis. So my thesis was on Black identity development, and basically just like the comparison of the Black immigrant experience to the African American experience, and just like the similarities but also differences. And the main difference was based off just like the immigration lens that a lot of Black immigrants have that African Americans don't. But long story short, when it comes to just like exposure to like society and stuff like that, sorry, I kind of lost my thought.
You're okay.
Like
Take your time.
Yeah,
Take your
but
time.
basically, I just think that. Tell me again what you said.
So I was just like,
I'm
now
sorry.
all that's stuck in my head is like Jerry Seinfeld from a B movie, and all I could think of is like, what are these stripes? I'm sorry, this is total derailment of this conversation. It's awful.
It's okay.
Ah!
Look, it's okay.
This is what makes for good podcasting.
Yes.
He is just like the rawness of it, right? But you're talking about, oh my God, now I've forgotten what you're so your thesis on Black identity and the difference between a African American who identifies as somebody who is connected to the Black American identity, right, and somebody who is an immigrant to the United States that identifies with this Black immigrant status. Is that?
Oh no, what I was saying. What was your point that you had made before?
I don't even remember what the point was
Yeah,
made. I was just trying to draw back into your conversation.
No, I knew. I was trying to bring it back full circle of why I brought that up. But basically, I don't know. I just think that people. Oh, that's what it is. Basically, the lens. So some of the articles that I was reading is basically just kind of touching on the fact of like a lot of people that aren't exposed to other individuals, right? Like, let's say you are completely isolated. They'll take a non-one-on-one personal experience as a personal experience through media. So like exposure to certain stereotypes and just a lot of things through media, like you're bound to believe those to be like your firsthand experience as opposed to like a removed experience because you're not actually interacting with those people, but you've seen enough of that content to where it's kind of embedded in your mind. And it's just like people don't realize that through that regard, like we think that we know others, but we really don't. And it's just like, I think it just reiterates what you're saying. It's just like we have to be more exposed. We have to be not as isolated. And with the Black, the Black immigrant experience, just reading about the lenses, it just really gave emphasis to that point that you were making.
Yeah. I mean, I can't, I can't imagine what it's like to experience racism in this country, let alone the experience of international racism, right? Like having to go from continent to continent to be treated poorly in different ways, still based in the color of your skin.
Yeah. Well, we have to remember that, like, the U.S. is number one in that regard. I think, when it comes to a lot of, and I've traveled a little bit, but it's just like through the little exposures that I've had, I realized in other countries I am American. Only here is when it's differentiated that I am a African American or a Black female American. Like there's stigmas and boxes, categories that people are put in here, but like that's the basis of our country. Our country is built off of racism. It's like nothing to be surprised about. Don't be surprised. It's been happening for I don't know how long, but it's just like moving forward, just being aware of it. Like that's the beginning, but also knowing that like without being aware of it, we can't solve the problems because we choose not to deem the source of the poison. Yeah. But until we can get to that point, I guess we'll just continue to kind of pseudo assume that we're moving forward. Though I think strides are being made, but I think that there's a lot more that could be done in different ways that we haven't seen when it comes to just development of groups, more groups of conversations on the basis of race. You have a lot of people in this country that cannot have a conversation on race. And we think we've come so far.
Yeah.
But people get in a heated argument ready to go get a gun and kill. It's crazy. So I'm not trying to get extreme with this, aspect,
but it is, the experience last night alone, right? As we see this become a broader focus now, where do we see in this very moment where folks engaged in the Black Lives Matter movement directly engage with what is now the Stop Asian American Hate activity and start to draw all of these poisonous racist components together into one, and understanding that there is an underlying, like this is really what this country is. When I say built on, right? It's like the biblical sand and stone story, right? If this is underneath all of it, right? You can have this immaculate house. You can have this big, beautiful, but if you've built it on sand,
it'll crumble.
The look of it matters nothing, and it will be swept into the ocean.
You can only build up as high of as strong as the base is, right? Like, we haven't gone that far. We haven't built up that far because our foundation is whack. So, and I'm not, and I don't look at that to be a pessimistic thing, like, I just think it's real. Yeah. Like, just be honest. Like, we're not where we need to be. We're still coming along, and there is opportunity to grow and develop, but it's like it takes all of us being like serious about wanting to make change. Like, are we serious, or is it just cool? Mm-hmm. Is it cool to like be for Black Lives Matter, or like, is it a fading thing? Is this a trend? And then it makes you wonder. I mean, that's a whole conversation in itself. It's just like, do Black lives really matter? Because you still see a lot of crime going on. One aspect, police brutality. Other aspect, Black on Black crime. When nobody's talking about Black on Black crime and still the loss and the impact that it has in communities and neighborhoods all throughout the world. I mean, one place where I'm living right now, Chicago, it's just like, there's a lot of people that die and you don't hear about it. And it's just like, regardless of the means of how they died, their deaths are not acknowledged as wrongs.
The other side of it to me is the system itself being geared towards instability in communities, specifically Black communities throughout this country, right? Where what is essentially forced poverty on folks, right? When economic systems and systems of government, everything from redlining to lack of access to credit, to something as significant as the Tulsa massacre, right? Mm-hmm. All of these things play a role in like forcibly destabilizing the lives of Black people in this
100%.
country.
I 100% agree with that. And I think, to go alongside that, being aware that these things are happening and calling attention to those horrible, situations and experiences felt by the Black community is definitely, a starter. Being aware, acknowledging, and then, kind of asking, what is the response to what has just occurred. But outside of that, I think also it is a responsibility for every individual in the Black community, outside of the Black community, whoever it may be, to make change where they see it due. Mm-hmm. And so, like, I think a lot of people aren't, and I'm not speaking, just when it comes to like the Black community, but just in general, I think a lot of people aren't doers. Mm-hmm. Like we want to do something, but we don't know how. Yeah. And so like, then we don't do it. Mm-hmm. But we want to, but you don't. Yeah. And it's just like, I think that we can see a lot more change if more people step forward and say, I'm tired, I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired, mm-hmm. and I want to make some change. Well, how am I going to make that change? I'm going to lead the cause. I'm going to find out. I'm going to figure out, what do I have to do? Or if somebody's already doing it, how can I help? Yeah. Connecting with those individuals. Like doing, I think it's a civic responsibility for everybody to be aware of how can they make their communities better. Mm-hmm. For example, like, and this isn't everybody, but like, I live in Chicago. A lot of snow this last mm-hmm. winter, right? We had a really bad snow that first time around. I think it was like 12 inches or something like that. And everybody was stuck, and there were people in my building who was like, I got kids, and I got babies, and we got to work, but couldn't end up going to work because of the snow. Mm-hmm. And it's just like, it's one thing, it's just like, look at it like, damn, I can't do anything about it. So I can't achieve what I need to do. Or I could do what's the unpopular thing, which is go out, get a shovel, and shovel the snow so that I can get to work. And I'm not saying this is everybody, right? This is just one example of just one way of responding to a situation another mm-hmm. way. Mm-hmm. I looked at it as, dang, not necessarily for me, but for everybody else, in my building, like, people gotta get to work. Mm-hmm. I shoveled the entire parking lot.
Damn.
But like, it's too, and then there was multiple people that came by, walking by, they're like, people aren't gonna appreciate you. People don't care about what you're doing for them. Like, but I did it because it was a greater good to be done, as opposed to like just to be an example to everyone else. Is like, someone can get out here and make a change for the dynamics for all of us. But if we did it as a group, I mean, I'm sure it would have been a lot quicker. But it's just like,
sorry, I don't
No,
mean
go
to cut
ahead.
you off. I just so this to me plays into something that kind of spurred in my mind as you've been talking, and that is that there's not always a clear, definable action that somebody can take to follow through. So like your snow shoveling activity, right? That was an action that was like very clear, like here's the problem, here's the solution, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think what we failed to do, and again, this is with an entire society,
Yeah.
right, is let people understand that it's not that you're going to have an objective as soon as you enter in seeking, to do good, to serve.
You might not know
Excuse
the
me.
path.
Yeah, but like you make it up as you go.
And you got to be comfortable with being uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And like the fear of the unknown.
Mm-hmm.
And like those are two things that like a lot of people struggle with just in general. And I think when I'm speaking in any regard, I don't think that we have, me personally, I think that, to a certain degree, yes, we have racialized problems,
Mm-hmm.
but I think overall a lot of problems that are faced amongst people here is more of an American problem. Just from a global perspective of traveling and stuff like that, just seems as though it's more of Americans not like wanting the American dream, but not willing to put in the work in the right ways, right? But I think part of the problem also, I think like people just don't know how to like go forward, but then they're told that, oh, this is the way to go forward, but if it doesn't work out, then they feel like, what do I do?
Yeah.
And it's just like, how do we close that gap? Like, how do we make sure people...
Simple ways of just telling people you're allowed to fail,
Yeah.
right? And I hate like, so this is like the toxic positivity thing that I can't stand, right? Is that like people tell you that you're allowed to fail, or the people that are like living cush lives that like, have a spouse that's working $100,000 job, so their ability to fail is different than somebody who's like by themselves, or like, they've had, legs up in life that other folks haven't. So it's easy to communicate that. But like when you're in a precarious position where like a single failure can result in devastating consequences, right? That changes the calculus on like what failure is. Like is failure trying and not being able to succeed, or is like failure not being able to eat right now?
Mm-hmm. But I don't think it's failure. I think that we get put in situations that are not ideal. Mm-hmm. At times in our lives, right? And it's just like, I don't know. I'm on this positive thinking, but it's just like I don't think it's failure, but rather I think every experience happens for you, regardless if you see it in that way or not. There's a lot of things that happen in our lives that can be really messed up.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong, but it's just like I truly believe everything, like every experience we have is meant for us, and so like at the end of the day, like we might not have control. We don't have control over the things that happen to us, right? 10% is what happens to us. 90% is how we react to it. And it's just like, I just try to focus on like, how am I going to react to this situation? Because at the end of the day, we don't have control. We can't keep things from happening to us.
Yeah.
But what we can control is how we react to it. Is how we, how we look at it. And it's like, if something happens that is not ideal and you're like, wow, I just failed and now I can never live again because I failed. Well, you put that on yourself. No one told you. Maybe people did, but it's just like, to a certain extent, like you told yourself that you couldn't, and so you couldn't.
Well, I guess more what I'm thinking of is like the scale of risk that one is capable of taking, right? Like in terms of like what is meeting one's basic needs for survival and shelter and food and whatever else, right? And the difference between those that essentially have the space to fail, like I'm one of those folks, right? Like I've gotten to like go through the experiences where I have not achieved what I wanted to achieve, time after time, because I've had the safety net there to like fall back into, right? And when folks don't have that, it's like, well, what do we ask folks to risk, right? Like what level of risk do we ask individuals to take if they're already in precarious situations where, they may not be able to tolerate so much risk.
Yeah.
And it's on the other side of that, I will say, right, it's not like there's something risky about going out and volunteering an afternoon a week, or finding some project to involve yourself in because you think like that feels like a good thing that would have a positive impact on the people around you. So like not that side of things, but I guess I'm probably thinking
I think you're saying like access to opportunity, right? Like how do we give people access to opportunity without exploiting them?
Without exploiting them. That's the key.
Yeah, and I think that if you're asking me, I'm not an expert, but if you're asking me, I do think that it comes down to just individual relationships that we're developing and making sure that those are meaningful relationships as opposed to not. And so I personally think when it comes to society, we need to get back to like apprenticeships. We need to get back to one-on-one interactions, mentoring, networking, guidance and development, not only from just like people who are way older than you, but just like people with experience in the areas that you want to excel in. Like, who should you listen to? Who do you listen to?
Yeah.
It should be the person that has what you want. And if that person doesn't have what you want in whatever regard you're talking about, you probably should be listening to that person and so it's just like, I think that would help so many people kind of find their way. Cause I feel like a lot of people are like lost nowadays. So they just don't know, like they're either in a bad situation and they don't know how to get out of it or they're confused and don't know how to move forward. But like they had guidance in the right areas, maybe they'd be able to move forward a little bit stronger. Maybe they're able to get a little bit more done because they have somebody that they can depend on that's also is cheering them on and being that cheerleader.
Yeah.
I think that's all we need. Like, I don't want to reduce the world to that, but I think that like if we're kinder to one another, we could be a little bit better. Like how you were saying, I think, was this the conversation we were having last night? It was just like if somebody can't pay their rent and then they're kicked out and then just kind of is like a snowball effect of just a series of individuals that they're interacting with that aren't as understanding, which, and don't get me wrong, like they're, like it's a responsibility, like, okay, yes, you do have to pay your rent, but like, let's say it's a situation that was uncontrollable to you as to why you couldn't, and then it snowballed into you not being able to live. You're homeless now due to that situation. It's just like, how do you move forward where we should reflect as a society, like, regardless of what you're doing and how you're doing it and how you're making your money and stuff like that, how do you treat people? How do people look at you? Do you sleep well at night? Or can't you sleep? And if you can't sleep, why? It comes down to how we treat people and how we look at it. Like, you can't ever deem yourself, I could be a multimillionaire right now. But that wouldn't make me feel like I'm any more significant than you. Why? Because if I die, can I take it all with me? I don't think so. Or I haven't seen it. And then it's just like, it comes down to that. It's just like, I think that it's I personally think it is a civic responsibility to be kind to people and to try and do what you can towards people. So like, if we could get to a culture, like back to a culture like that, which I think we had before. And I think it still maintains, I just think it's smaller, now, like the civic community. What's that book? Bowling Alone. Just like all these different, I think that we've seen a civic community kind of be reduced. People don't interact with one another as much as they do. And so how can you cultivate those organic relationships that lead to help and support and love and care, if that's not the initial want?
That's why you need to be hanging out in the WTF Carbondale group. And I'm so sad I haven't had you in there for years now. You're going to just join it and hang out for the sake of like, whenever you just need to feel like home, you can just click on the internet, look on Facebook, and it'll be there. I promise you.
With it. Okay.
You will see some Carbondale ass shit going on that you'll be like, man. Oh, so it was so funny. And this happened in like two different parts of my feed a couple days ago. Like I was telling Matt about that this young woman like had her keys locked out of her car and she came to the group. She's like, hey, I need somebody. And like, I don't know if somebody came from the group or not or whatever, but ultimately somebody did come to help her out. And then, somebody else who's a friend of mine who was picking up food at the restaurant nearby, like saw it happen, like took a picture because the dude that was unlocking her car just had a parrot on his fucking shoulder. And it's like, I don't know. You get to see a lot of that type of stuff. And then you get to keep up on these wonderful podcasts.
Right. Hey, I'm with it now.
So one of the things that I've wanted to talk about that I think is real cool is the experience that you had with Rotary Club and what Rotary Club kind of allowed you to go do, because you were still in high school, right? When you were fundraising for going overseas.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just going to let you take it from there because I'm not going to mess up the
Yeah.
context.
Well, I think I'm gonna go back a little bit further.
Yeah, do your thing.
Just because I think that with every test in life, you have a testimony.
Uh-huh.
And so it's kind of a story. So I'm gonna bring you along the story, and then it'll kind of, I'll weave Rotary and everything else kind of into that. Growing up, as I said, grew up in Carbondale. Small scale family, great family. I love my family, but we didn't come from like a wealthy background whatsoever, and so that experience just kind of helped me. Was my initial understanding of just like where I was in society. Like, all right, you're already kind of at the bottom. You're black, you're a woman, and you're poor, and it's just like, but the way that society deems those things, and just kind of like statistics wise, as opposed to like who you are as an individual, regardless, all my life I've been an amazing woman. Didn't know it, like as a kid, you don't know these things, but regardless of what I've been through, like I'm an amazing being that exists on this earth, and I deserve to be here. So having that understanding and assurance, I know, I feel thankful for, because not everybody can say that coming from a similar background. But it's just like growing up, I felt as though I didn't love Carbondale in the ways that I do now. Just because I felt as though I was just reduced to the streets of Carbondale, of where like I didn't have exposure outside of Carbondale. Had never really traveled much outside of like church trips that we would go on. But Rotary, Boys and Girls Club actually, was really the first civic community entity, being exposed to as kids. Me and my siblings, we all went to Boys and Girls Club every single day after school, so that was cool. Staff there was amazing. Randy, he's cool. And so it's just like, everybody there just was really supportive. But then we were exposed to Rotary, which had Ryla. Do you know Ryla?
Not off
the
top of my head.
Rotary Youth Leadership Awards program.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I've been to the meetings and heard it discussed, and seen a couple other young folks engaging like in the process of seeking.
Yeah, and it's just like being exposed to that. It was a weekend of just being interacting with students all over Illinois, so that was cool. But at the end of the weekend, it's just like an aspect on Rotary International, and I'm like, well, what is that? Rotary Youth Exchange, Rotary International. What are these things? And like they kind of did a presentation, and just like it was my first time really being exposed to just the idea of being able to go live in a whole nother country for an entire year and live with different families and learn different languages and stuff. And I'm like, what is this? Like, this can't be real. And if it is, like, how do they make that happen? And so I went and I approached Randy and Kathy Renfro, and I was just like, I'm very interested in being a part of this. And they were like, well, let's just see how it goes, so let's think on it. But are you sure this is something you're really interested in? I'm like, I think so. And so ended up, thinking on it that year, didn't end up, doing anything about it. I was like, okay, well, maybe we'll just see. We'll just wait it out. And then the second year, going back to Ryla, being exposed to that again, I was just like, okay, I know this is something that I really want to do. Like, it just sounds like a really cool experience. And I approached them, and I was like, I'm willing to do whatever it takes to make this happen. And they was like, okay, you're going to have to put in the work, and it's not going to be easy. We can make it happen as long as you're working towards that. And when I say we approached, all of the Rotary clubs in the Southern Illinois area, Kiwanis, Lions, every service organization I think I spoke at, and I was there and I shared my story with every single one of those clubs, and just being able to share my story, and then those individuals being willing to understand that, like, it takes a village. And I truly believe in that, because if it wasn't for those individuals alongside my great-grandmother, so I was raised with my great-grandmother, as you know, after losing my mother to breast cancer at a young age. And it's just like that experience, I think that alongside living in Carbondale, not being exposed to much, just made me think I didn't have much to live for. So I was very depressed, very suicidal as a kid after losing my mother, because that was my best friend. And I was in the room, with her passing. So that was a traumatic experience, and just going through that and losing my best friend. Above anything else, but like she kind of paved the way for me as well, because that was the first time I'd ever been on a plane Second time I'd ever been on a plane was going to Brazil. So over 13-hour flight, overnight, over a bunch of water. Crazy. But it's just like that first, time, few years before that, getting on a plane with my mother and her kind of like, I feel like guiding that way because I've been on so many planes ever since. And it's just like she was the initial kind of introduction to all that. But being able to go and go around to my community and see the support that I got, like that was mind changing. Because just like, who am I for all these people to say you deserve to live out your dream? Like, this is a dream that you have and we're willing to work towards making that happen. I mean, I never had that happen before, and seeing that support from them and my family, though they weren't, they were with it, but they were very supportive, but unsure, of course, because like nobody had ever gone and been an exchange student in my family, so it's just like, let's go ahead, let's try it, but through all of that, it developed into a beautiful experience of us being able to raise over $8,000 in, I think it was like less than 6 months, and it's like being able to like do that. And then fund my entire trip to Brazil and be exposed, and that leading into the political science, international relations, traveling the world. Like, that's part of the reason why I am who I am today, based off of that experience. But it came from Carbondale. Carbondale made me into the person that I am today. Carbondale helped pave my way, and like I couldn't be more thankful because there's time again, like, I've been blessed by Carbondale, and every time I come home, we were having this conversation last night, like I feel refreshed, and I'm always surrounded by good people because that's what Carbondale is. So if I could do anything, like I want the love that I have for this city to kind of like pour out into like those that have never been here, because like you're missing out. If you haven't been here, you're missing out. It's a jewel, but we have to rep it like that. Because like if we're not letting people know, hey, Carbondale's a place you want to be because it's an amazing place with amazing people, who would ever know?
Carbondale paves the way. Pave your way to Carbondale. It's episode 47. I'm almost in tears. Naomi Tolbert, wonderful friend, one of the interesting people whose story is tied very deeply into this place we call home. Have a good one, whatever that one may be.